The panel, which we just had, discussed some very important issues related to climate change. And the messages that I wanted to convey has to do with the fact that we shouldn't run away from uncertainty, but we should acknowledge it. It makes the credibility of our scientific inputs better, and moreover, it can enhance the discussion of policy, not limit it. And so let me just give you an example. Sometimes, if you have bigger uncertainty concerns, you actually want to be more proactive. Many people fear that, oh, if you say we're uncertain about something, we should just not be active, just be passive, and just sit on the sidelines. But decision-making under uncertainty means the possibility of bad outcomes is enough to make you want to act now, because it may be much cheaper in the case of climate change for us to be taking actions now rather than waiting until the damages, which are largely irreversible, actually materialize. So that's one message which I want to get on the table, that we should face these uncertainties in a very open way. Now, from the standpoint of climate change problem, they come from multiple sources. There's the geoscientific side. We emit carbon in the atmosphere. What does that do to temperature? What does that do to other adverse effects on climate change? We have lots of evidence of a human impact on those type of activities, but the quantitative magnitudes are where the uncertainty shows up. From an economic side, we're pushing economies into places that they haven't really visited before. So that means we have to engage in some type of model-based extrapolation and to make guesses as to what's going to, as to how people will respond to these changes. And then this comes under the heading of adaptation. Now we can make some shrewd guesses, but there's going to be uncertainty about that. And finally, a third one that I've been trying to emphasize in my own research is one important way that we can address climate change is by playing what I call the long game. That is, we may make investments now in some technological advances in the future that can deliver a clean source of energy and one that's economically viable. That may take decades to actually fully materialize. So we need to take action now in order to limit the damages before those before the technological advancements can take place. But putting the technology considerations on the table is very important, even if they're highly uncertain in terms of their successes. So this is something that my fellow panelists talked about in more detail than me, Catherine, but I think getting cooperation across countries to address climate change and stable cooperation is very challenging. I think there's some things we can do to try to nurture that. I hope there's more cooperation going forward across the world to address it, because it really is a global problem. But governments are different. Governments come and go, so there's some important challenges there. For me, that makes it all the more important we think longer term about these technological advancements as a way to get us out of the problem. I think hopefully we can make, as climate change becomes even more evident to various populations, we can make progress on the cooperation in terms of emissions reductions. But I also hope that we can also continue to explore economically viable green alternative energies. When I'm exploring things like the prospects of technological changes, we're talking about things that are decades down the road. So in some sense, it's going to have an impact on their life going forward. I think of I may be long gone by the time these successes happen, but I still think it's important that we invest in them in terms of other long-term perspectives. In terms of the training in business schools or the like, part of my research is trying to focus on how to integrate uncertainty into decision-making in ways that allow for general notions of uncertainty. The usual way that we teach uncertainty is the so-called risk model. We know probabilities, but we don't know outcomes. Coin flips, dice, throwing dice, those are cases where we know probabilities but not outcomes. And that's how we often teach things about risk aversion. I think it's very important educationally wise, because I think it's a very important practical problem to think about uncertainty in broader terms. Maybe we're not quite sure what the probabilities are, maybe we're using models that aren't quite correct, things like that. Those are also integral parts of uncertainty. And the type of research I've been doing has been trying to figure out ways that we can integrate that broader notion of uncertainty into decision making, both private sector as well as public sector. This may sound a little bit trite, but what I think is really important is that you find things that you have passion for. You know, people might come for me to career advice. I'm reluctant to give concrete career advice without knowing what's going to really excite them. Because to make advancements in almost any career, it's going to require a lot of hard work. So you better really be committed and like what you're doing and being convinced that it's something that you're going to have passion for. So look for careers which you can really feel some passion.